With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. All praise belongs to Allah, the guardian evolver, the cherisher, the keeper, and the sustainer of all systems of knowledge. We seek his help, we ask for his forgiveness. We put our trust and our faith in him. Mighty and sublime is he. I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah alone, the one and only. There is none like unto him, and I bear witness that Muhammad the Prophet is Allah's servant, messenger, and the prophet to all of mankind. We ask Allah's peace and his blessed highest exaltation be upon Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, upon his family, upon his companions, the righteous. All of you, O Muslims, be peace. Assalamu alaikum. I am Imam Ismael Saleem from Norfolk, Virginia, Masjid William Salam, and my co-presenter and classmate is Sister Varsty Mohammed.
Assalamu alaikum. Again, my name is Sister Varsty Mohammed. I'm the International Vice President of the International League of Muslim Women, Incorporated, and President of the Philadelphia chapter. Before we get into the presentation, we would like to first say thank you and give acknowledgement to the leadership of Islamic Leadership Training and Development Program, Imam Mubashir Upta, Imam Dr. Bashir Ali, Imam Salahuddin Muhammad, Imam Dr. Salahuddin Muhammad, and Imam Kashi Abdul Karim.
We would also like to thank the Study Al-Islam program and Sister Fitra Muhammad and her team for having us. Lastly, a special shout out to our classmates, the first graduates from the Islamic Leadership Training and Development Program. It is with great pride and joy that we are here as a reflection of the class of 2023.
Today, we will highlight a core value under the leadership of Mr. Fahad Mohammed, Sister Clara Mohammed, the Honorable Elijah Mohammed, and Imam Warith Mohammed. These core values remain strong within the communities under the leadership of Imam Warith Mohammed. Surah 84, Ayat 19, reminds us that we will travel from stage to stage. It reads, "We shall surely travel from stage to stage."
Historically, there are four forces that laid the foundation of the Nation of Islam. The African American experience, including the early African Muslim slave experience, the Marcus Garvey movement, the Moorish science, and the legacy of Fard Muhammad. The first stage of this progress was the dependence, the nation. It took place in 1930 to 1975. The second stage of progress occurred in 1975 to 2008 with Imam Warith Muhammad and our independence. The third stage from 2008 to present day is the interdependence, working together to build the Islamic community life. The first core value that we wanted to speak about was the value of self-identity. This would introduce Mr. Fard Muhammad. Our first value comes from the first stage of progress under the leadership of Mr. Fard Muhammad. He is one of the most important figures in American Islamic history. Mr. Fard formulated the structure of political and racial discourse that enabled the religion to move into the 1950s and 1960s with a dramatic validity under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad and his teacher and his student, Malcolm X.
Mr. Fahad core value will remain as a strong root within the community is the value of self-identity. He used the framework of religion, the power of language, reverse psychology, and new mythology to capture African American imagination. He redefined ethnic identity. He also introduced a new cultural paradigm. He also neutralized the psychology of white supremacy, leading us into a discovery of self. Hence, the concept of the black man as God was created.
The founder of the Nation of Islam used several tools to uplift, invigorate, enlighten, and inform the black man and woman in the wilderness of North America. He used the power of language, English and Arabic, to stimulate the minds of blacks in America. He used reverse psychology to undo the PTSD that we had suffered, the post traumatic slave disorder, not to mention Jim Crow, redlining, lynching, and the numerous massacres of black communities like Black Wall Street and Rosewood. A people who experience perpetual slavery, racism, and discrimination needed a new outlook on life, a new ideology, and a new religion. Fuad Muhammad knew that Islam was and is the answer to all the problems of black people, but he felt it necessary to cure their psychological ailment first. We are a people who have never been formally diagnosed, given a prognosis, nor a treatment. Mr. Fuad Muhammad intended to cure all of our ills in one fell swoop. He created a new mythology of our origin, a new ethnic identity which defined the tribe from which we came and the religion which we lost. This is the core value that I wanted to focus on, our identity as Muslims practicing Islam. I say Islam, not al-Islam, because the al wasn't added yet. Like my predecessor, Imam Farid would say, Islam, what he saw and taught Islam to be. Farad Muhammad introduced us to the Quran, Islamic terms, and ideologies. He prepared us to accept al-Islam. We were proud to be called Muslims and Muslim sons. Because of Farad, the Quran was placed on high on the shelves in the homes of Muslims in the Nation of Islam, and we greeted each other with Assalamu alaikum. He gave us discipline, identity, and a backbone to stand against any adversary, who at the time was the American white man. While most black people of the early 1900s thought white people to be unbeatable, he removed this mystique. In fact, he completely removed the inferiority complex many black people had. He said the black man was fighting on God's side as a God himself, and that they were kings and queens, and the white man was on the side of the devil. In fact, he taught the white man was the devil. This gave the black man the strength, the ability, and the courage to accept the religion of Islam and practice it openly. In 1975, Imam Warith Deen Mohammed brought the plan of Farad Muhammad into fruition. He brought those newly awakened people, those mentally, physically, and spiritually strong people to Islam proper, or al-Islam. That is the core value that Farad Muhammad or Imam Muhammad Abdullah brought to us, which Imam Warith Deen Muhammad has corrected, completed, and purified, and which we maintain to this day. If not for him, many of us would not be Muslims today. Most of us would not be. He is the reason that the beautiful and proper name of God, Allah, was repeatedly said and heard on the airways of the radio, on television, and throughout the inner city streets.
Mr. Fahad built an empire of nation-owned, do-for-self businesses with collective economics and mandatory Mohammed Speaks newspaper sales, such as The Final Call. Today, this value remains strongly rooted within the communities of Imam Warith Muhammad. Evidence of this collective economic concept is throughout our communities with businesses such as We Buy Black, the Muslim Journal, A Time to Be Grateful, Sapala Square, The Thinker, American Muslim 360, Imam Warith Muhammad Radio, New Freedom Exchange, and Study al-Islam. The second core value Ishmael and I would like to highlight is the value of education. The seed of education, we know, was replanted in the action of Sister Clara Mohammed. I use the term replanted because the original seed was planted with Lady Khadijah, the Prophet's wives. The concept of do for self, we know, is often used about business. However, we forget that education is business. Business does not happen unless you're educated. You have to be educated within that industry. Clara Mohammed recognized that public education was a business, and that business was not inclusive of her and her children. Hence, she took the do for self concept and started her own homeschool. As a result of this seed, today, the homeschool industry is a $1 billion business. Sister Clara Mohammed's spirit reawakened the power within us. Her spirit exemplified the spirit of what we all should be. From her seed of homeschooling, our communities grew to the University of Al Islam, Clara Mohammed Schools, the W.D. Mohammed High Schools. Her seed became the prototype fit for a nation. For example, an elementary school from the Nation of Islam was established, called the University of Al Islam in Detroit, 1932. As documented, 41 Nation of Islam schools called Mohammed University of Al Islam, even though they taught elementary and secondary school, would eventually open in other large American cities. Imam Warith Mohammed in 2008 at Homewood Hotel in Homewood, Illinois, reminded us, and I quote, "We have a good thing, but we should recognize our life and principles, then our environment as a Christian environment, and an obligation to our neighbors and those close to our schools. We should consider them in our planning. We should address the victims of vices and the cultural deprived. Make a statement for all schools recognizing the legalities." Muslim schools across the United States owe their birth to the vision and commitment of Sister Clara Mohammed. Today, her seed continues to grow and blossom. A few examples showing the value of education remain strong can be seen through our weekend schools, such as the Strong End School at Ashahid Islamic Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Online schools and programs such as the Islamic Training Development Program, the Mali Institute, Islamic Learning Institute. They're private schools owned and operated by Muslims, such as the Mohammed Schools of Atlanta, Georgia, the New Medina Institute at Masjidallah in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Clara Science Academy at the Imam Wardi Mohammed Islamic Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. And we have several camps, for example, Camp Calir in Florida.
Now, I would just like to ask, how was education used to strengthen womanhood within the African American communities? This is what we want to focus on when thinking of Sister Clara Mohammed. And this is a really unique parallel. If we think about the mother of Moses, alayhi salam, she knew his greatness. She trusted in Allah and put Moses on the path to realize his greatness. Maryam, the mother of Jesus, alayhi salam, an entire surah of the Quran is named after her. She is chosen above the women of all nations. Her duty is to prepare the prophet Jesus, alayhi salam. Then one of our mothers, the mother of the believer, Lady Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with her. After the prophet received his revelation, Muhammad the prophet ran to her. She comforted him. She consoled him. She took him to Warith, her cousin. She was his support system. In fact, before he was the prophet, she hired him to work for her, and she pursued him first for marriage. She financed his ministry when he became the prophet. In the same vein, there would be no nation of Islam without Sister Clara Muhammad. She heard the teachings of Farad Muhammad first. She got Elijah Muhammad out of the bar and took him to come and listen to Farad Muhammad. Sister Clara Muhammad held the family down and the nation down when Elijah was on the run and when he was in prison. She didn't like to take credit, but when she was pressed, she would say all of this, meaning all of the nation, is because of her. Her legacy and core value is the pivotal, the necessary and the essential part of women in teaching Islam and building a nation. We are living in a time where African American women are the Khadijas and Clara Muhammads of our time. Our sisters are greatly educated and career orientated. They are into politics and health and fitness. They can open doors for us like Lady Khadijah and Sister Claire did for their husbands. But we as men have to be willing to walk through those doors. We cannot look at our sisters in contempt, but with love and appreciation. They can take us out of the sports bars and clubs and take us into the masjid. They can invest in us like Khadijah or inquire about us for marriage. We as men are entrusted with the security and maintenance of the household financially. But Lady Khadijah invested in Muhammad and they together built wealth. The legacy of Sister Clara Muhammad is based on doing for self and education, managing our educational affairs. That's the legacy our sisters should consider when they think of Sister Clara Muhammad. Assertiveness, doing what is necessary, making the man a better version of himself, finding someone with potential and bringing that potential into greatness, making our men, better husbands, better fathers, better sons, and better Muslims. The third core value that we wanted to talk about is do for self. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us to do for self. As a young man, he saw Black men lynched, and this forever changed him. He swore that he would improve his people's condition when he came of age. But life and circumstances seemed to get the better of him. He and Sister Claire lived through the Great Depression. They had very little money. They moved repeatedly. Whenever the rent was due and he didn't have any money, they had to move. Unable to change the plight of his own family, let alone his people, he went to drinking. Fortunately for him, he was sober when he chose Sister Clara Muhammad. He was wise enough, and it was in Allah's plans that she bring him to Farad Muhammad. And Farad changed his slave name and gave him a new mind, a sober mind, a righteous mind, one in pursuit of knowledge and truth and solution for the Black man in North America. One of those solutions was to do for self. He taught that we will never be seen as equals if we have to beg for a job from the white man, beg for equal rights, beg to eat with him and drink with him. If the Black people were ever wanted to rise to their greatest potential, we have to do for self, make our own jobs, have our own factories, our own schools, and our own hospitals. We cannot fire ourselves. There are members of my masjid right now who were once in the Nation of Islam who are harassed at their jobs. One brother almost lost his job. But you cannot lose your job when you are the boss. Brothers took Elijah Muhammad's words and teachings to heart. They got a trade and became their own bosses. Too many of us today have lost that spirit, and we desperately need to get it back. I was one of them. I was in corporate America, and they loved me when I didn't have a beard, and my practice of al-Islam didn't get in the way. I got a promotion, then I grew my beard. And when it was time for work lunch, they had to buy food without pork just for me. Then I became the Imam, and I had to be off every Friday at Dhuhr time, no matter what was going on at work. The practice of my Deen became problematic. And all I can say is now that I am suing them currently. They discriminated against me for being Black, or for being Muslim, or for both. But I wouldn't have had to sue them or ask them for anything if I had listened to Elijah Muhammad and got my own business. My masjid just had a Black History Month program in February. We had a panel with pioneers who are entrepreneurs. We had an electrician, a general contractor, a roofer, and a farmer. They each told us about the words of Elijah Muhammad and how they took them seriously and put them into action. At my masjid currently, we pray Jummah at the time of Dhuhr. When it changes a little bit each week, those entrepreneurs do not care because they are their own bosses. When the Eid falls on Wednesday or Thursday, Monday or Tuesday, they do not care. They can take off any time that they like because they are their own bosses. They hire other Muslims, so all of them can take off for the Eid or for the Jummah without any problem. When we do for self, we control our own destiny. We control our time. We control our employment. We control our future. We can practice our Deen without fear of retaliation or retribution. This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave to us. The last core value that we want to highlight is the New Africa concept.
Imam Warith Muhammad continued the tradition of human excellence and interdependent free thinking. He introduced the new Quranic language concepts and natural fitra-based thinking to shape the development of the community. He believed two things account for success in business. One, the regard for something bigger and more important than self. Two, the ability to manage self. These new language concepts remake the world, the book of creation, man, universe as mates, words made people, cosmic man, a new creation.
Imam Warith Muhammad, may Allah forgive him his errors and grant him the highest station in paradise, sought to build the model community under the title of New Africa. He is the Mujaddid, the leader of the largest conversion to al-Islam in history. His rise to leadership was clearly planned by Allah Azza wa Jal. How many of us would be Muslims without him? How many of us would know and understand al-Islam without him? Only Allah can properly reward him for all that he has done for us. But what I wanted to identify as a core value that has been and must continue to be a means of distinction with Imam Warith Muhammad's community from all other communities until they embrace and accept the Mujaddid. The core value is that al-Islam does not erase culture. To me, that is one of the most distinctive qualities that we possess. Our sisters are not in separate rooms from us, like they can't control themselves around us or we can't control ourselves around them. We can be in the same room and worship Allah together, sisters with sisters and brothers with brothers, but together. The brothers can wear a shirt and tie or a sweater or a blazer and still be as Muslim as a brother in a thobe. Imam Warith Muhammad taught us to use common sense. Today it is not always common, now it's just sense. That if Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born in Alaska, he would have worn a large coat or a triple fat goose. So wearing a turban is Arab culture. And if their culture was acceptable to Allah, so is ours. We can be ourselves and still be Muslims. A couple of weeks ago, I had the privilege to go to the Eid Fest in Atlanta. There were Muslim entertainers reciting beautiful words over a beat, halal words over a beat. Our children, their parents, and their grandparents could all sing along, all together, and they did. You saw teenagers and people with gray hair singing the same songs. Some Muslims see this as our weakness, but it is one of our greatest strengths. We keep our culture and purify it. It was Abu Bakr or Umar who wanted the Africans to stop playing the drums, but our prophet told them to leave the Africans alone because that is their culture. I know a brother personally who does security at an Islamic center for immigrant brothers and sisters, and he has to move their cars on occasion. And when he turns on their cars, they all have music playing. Imam Warith Muhammad taught us that this entire universe is rhythmic. Our heartbeat is the rhythm of our lives. When it starts, we start. And when it stops, we stop. The birds and the bees are singing the praise of their Lord. Everything in motion has a frequency or a sound or a rhythm. The blood flowing through our veins is making music. The earth and the planets in their orbit, and the grass as it grows. Just because we cannot hear it doesn't mean that they are not glorifying their Lord. Our voice is absolutely unique. Each and every one of us has a unique and distinctive voice. Each of us have a unique rhythm when we recite the Quran. We are a poetic and rhythmic people. Though Muslims all around the world say music is haram, there is Arabic music, Turkish music, Pakistani music, Indian music, and on and on and on. While they hide their love for music, Imam Warith Muhammad gave us the courage to love it and live in it. We retain our culture as Africans living in America because of the teachings of Imam Warith Muhammad. As a new creation of Allah, our aim, our goal, our intention is to bring New Africa into existence with the four birds: governance, education, business, and culture, which includes the family life. And it will be the most beautiful expression of culture and community since the Muslims of Medina, inshallah. Imam Warith Muhammad on the vision of the model community. He says, yes, my vision for the future is a model community. that will answer Allah's call in the Quran, where He says, "Let there arise out of you a group of people, a community that comes inviting to all that's good, avoiding what destroys the good life called mukar, and believe in God."
Community institutions. This slide shows several organizations who are working to increase the visibility and productivity of the Muslim community and to promote the core values of our leaders and of Al Islam. The Atlanta Masjid recently celebrated 65 years of service. In Houston, we have 5 masjid: the Fifth Ward Islamic Center of Humanity, Abraham Islamic Center, Masjid Al Quran, Masjid Saleem Mohammed, and Masjid WD Mohammed, all successful. In Philadelphia, there's Masjid Abdullah. In Washington, D.C., is the Nation Mosque of Muhammad Masjid.
In this slide is a reflection of Imam Warith Deen Muhammad's community in present times. This is the combined communities Eid of my Masjid, Masjid William Salam, and the Chesapeake Masjid of Imam Warith Deen Muhammad, both in Virginia. This next slide is the graduating class of the Islamic Leadership Training and Development Program. May we strive to continue to keep his legacy intact.
The International League of Muslim Women will celebrate 31 years of service. TILW utilizes collective resources to promote empowerment through philanthropy and humanitarian work, service and volunteerism, and education, research, and development that will enable individuals and families alike to see opportunities instead of obstacles in the enrichment of their world.
Today, we continue to implement the vision and leadership of Imam Warith Deen Muhammad. Thank you and Assalamu alaikum.